Jesus dead for us, or we are dead for the dust.
Feeling in my soul, I pray my soul long gone.
The images typically conjured up at the sound of West Kingston and particularly Tivoli Gardens. At a time when reflects on what for hundreds of Jamaicans was Hell Week, memories are harking back to the tribulations and the trials of this cauldron, both of resistance and achievement. For those who have held this relatively small piece of the rock deep in their bosom, there's a prequel to the story. It's a dream, some feel, of near paradise, a story which is told in the film Hard Road to Travel. A rare look for most, a story which looks through the eyes and speaks from the lips of those who gave birth to the dream. A story told from the heart and the tongue of Edward Siaga, of a seminal and groundbreaking move to transform a slum bearing the apt name Backawall. One outsider who worked in the area recalls families living in old car bodies and structures built of cardboard boxes and flattened tins, as well as people lining up in droves to take water from a standpipe with old buckets and cans. While some remember the bulldozing of the site and exodus of the then occupants to other areas of the city, the film recounts transformation and renewal.
If a country picks one small spot and says this spot is to be the rectum of the whole city, is to be the place where everything that has no further use is to be deposited, then they must ask themselves the question, what do you expect from the people? West Kingston was the site of the abattoir. It is the location of the morgue. It has the biggest cemetery in the entire island. It has one of the main sewage treatment plants. It had the worst garbage dump, known as Dungle, and it had the worst slum in the entire country, known as Backawall.
Former Prime Minister and a man to whom some attributed financial wizardry, Edward Siaga, stood as main architect of Tivoli Gardens in the 1960s. The man who had bettered 3 other candidates for the Kingston Western seat in the 1962 election had soothing and promising words for those who would occupy Tivoli.
People lived in discarded cars, bits and pieces of scrap metal and cardboard tied together. Here was a nest where the worst criminals gathered and stamped their image on the face of West Kingston. What we set out to do was to reverse the process of decay, to demonstrate that even the wasteland of Backawall could be reclaimed.
The community was held up as a model for catering to life's needs, from the womb to the tomb. Take a look at the account of the prenatal facilities.
The 4-building complex known as the Mother and Child Center is, as its name implies, a center devoted to taking care of the needs of mothers and infants. Like life itself, let's begin with birth. In fact, before the event of birth itself. A prenatal clinic and a home economic center educate the mother-to-be in the basics of nutrition and child care. The child gets the benefit of proper nutrition, and the mother gets the benefit of proper medical care before the child is born, which is, of course, the best way to give the infant a good start in life.
The journey of transformation traverses early childhood to secondary educational amenities, sporting and cultural facilities, virtually everything for wholesome expression.
The program of the comprehensive school is supplemented by the program of the community center, the focus of social activities in Tivoli Gardens. It is a place teeming with life, a structure large and imposing, but with a warmth and vitality uniquely its own. It is a place of learning, of business, of work, and of play, where one can watch a game of skill or discuss one's problem.
But you're a carpenter, yes, right? I wouldn't use you as a laborer because if you have a skill, people, yeah. But we have a lot of laborers.
A revolutionary approach to housing was touted.
For these homeowners and tenants, Tivoli Gardens represents not just a place. There are different types of accommodations to suit different income levels, deliberately so, to retain in the area higher income residents who are community leaders. For what good would it do for a community to prosper if, as a result, it lost the fruits of its prosperity? The important thing is to provide room for all to grow. The important elements of social control and communal stability are built into the pattern of residential construction and ownership.
With Mr. Siaga's mastery of words, the vision transcended ordinary thinking. If all went according to script, the proverbial phoenix rising from the former Dungle and Bacawall, albeit with new occupants, would be a beacon on the socially challenged Kingston coast.
Just as the elements of decay, dirt, and garbage were conditioning factors in the old way of life, just so will the carefully manicured gardens in the people's parks and the refreshing fountains decorated with lights recondition old standards and produce new discipline and behavioral codes. But it will take time, many years of trial and error. The story of the community bench explains how we learn together as we live together and plan. First, there was the upright bench. Men sat on the upright and soiled the seat with their feet. No one sat on it. So we built a bench without a back, and they slept on it. No one sat on it. So now we have designed a curved bench which could neither be stepped on nor slept on. At last it served its purpose. People sat on it.
Of the 1,000 dwelling units in Tivoli Gardens constructed by the Ministry of Housing, 1/3 are high-rise rental units. 2/3 are units sold on a long-term basis and paid for on easy monthly terms. The sales units are of 3 basic types and prices. The terrace units, a string of attached homes with common walls, but a separate property line. The duplex units, and single-unit bungalows. To maintain property value, the more expensive units are sited on the most desirable locations.
The single factor carrying the greatest weight in determining success or failure in creating a community is the layout of residences and service centers in the area. This was the positive plan in mind in the concept of Tivoli Gardens.
There is irony which is hard to miss. The presence of the security forces in the community. Stark contrast with the images of recent years. Images which have even played out internationally.
In a corner of the community center, a small 2-man police post is located. But there is little work for them to do. For Tivoli, unlike Bacawall, has by far the lowest crime rate across the crime-prone waterfront of Kingston. Residents can walk by day or night without fear. And visitors too, the curious and the interested, celebrities and royalty, heads of government and international agencies, students and sightseers all come to Tivoli Gardens on frequent tours.
History would put a cruel twist on this image and interaction. the confrontations between the security forces and the Tivoli residents when we come back on West Kingston Remembered. With a name which originally belonged to a famous amusement park and a pleasure garden in Copenhagen, Denmark, Tivoli Gardens in West Kingston promised much. The community, along with other areas of West Kingston, has indeed spawned many talents in the fields of reggae music, football, drama, netball, and other avenues which showcase raw talent and hard work. Sadly, the darker side of the area has been no less noteworthy. 3 of the tragic chapters in the life of the community were in 1997, 2001, and 2008. In April 1997, police fatally shot Tivoli resident Rohan Fraser after he reportedly jumped from a ceiling and firing at them. In response to protests and roadblocks mounted by residents, army and police officers established a strong presence in the area. In 2 days of shooting in May, the day before and of Fraser's funeral, countless rounds were fired as the security forces said men shot at them. The security forces had many skeptics though, as subsequent report from Amnesty International noted that no guns or ammunition were recovered by the security forces, no suspected gunmen arrested, and no security personnel reported injury. Residents also alleged that security forces opened fire on the home in which Fraser's body lay, damaging even his casket. At least 9 persons were reported wounded by bullets, and 3 women and a 6-year-old boy fatally shot. The boy was said to have been struck in the head by a bullet while standing near a window in his room. One of the women was said to have been shot while returning home from a shop. Another said to have been killed on her way home from the funeral, while the third was reportedly hit by a bullet which entered her home after she returned from the funeral.
We have had peace. This is the coolest area along the entire waterfront. There's no need for this heavy military presence. There's no need for this heavy police presence in the area. The fact of the matter is that the military don't seem to be under any control at all. They don't seem to have any command. It's like a set of mad dogs running around the place. Every evening they go into the communities, they shoot up the area. The strap boys who have been shot on the bonnet of the vehicle, take out boys out of their mother arms, take them up to Rima and let them go where they are burnt alive. They shoot a little baby last night. They shoot another little boy this morning.
In August 1998, a jury in a coroner's inquest found no one criminally responsible for the deaths. The inquest heard evidence over a 4-month period from 67 witnesses. Then head of the Army Colonel John Simmons initially denied that shots had been fired from a helicopter. A statement later changed. With general elections due in several months, supporters and sympathizers of West Kingston and the Jamaica Labour Party ascribed political motives to the security forces operation. As far as confrontations go, worse was to come. Throughout the years, Tivoli enjoyed consistent success in culture, sports, and the arts, but in July 2001 came another massive operation. The police say a team went in search of guns and wanted men when they came under fire from gunmen in Tivoli Gardens and Denham Town. The standoff lasted 3 days from July 7 to 10, with the capital city effectively brought to a standstill as guns barked in West Kingston. The violence erupted in other volatile sections of the corporate area, as gunmen, said to be lending support to West Kingston, blocked roads and barked guns. When all the smoke cleared, 25 civilians, 1 soldier, and a policeman had died. While some ascribed political motive and despised the senior superintendent of police Renita Adams, who led the operation particularly from the MPM command post, He had ominous words for the nation as he spoke of the raising of illegal guns against the security forces. He restated his warning in an exit interview the day he retired.
Yes, I saw it, and I said it in an interview that Jamaica would pay dearly, dearly. And I hasten to say, and I mean it, if we don't try to arrest this situation, we are only at the first stage of the dearly. The other dearly is still to come. Dearly, dearly.
The then PNP government ordered a commission of inquiry into what was then a virtually unimaginable occurrence in the country. The commission was chaired by retired Canadian Judge Julius Isaac. Remember him? Early on, the proceedings hit a major roadblock when JLP representatives walked out, citing bias on the part of the chairman. In the end, the inquiry found, among other things, that violence perpetrated against the security forces by groups of armed civilians provoked the forces' response. There was no credible evidence of violence directed through political motivation. The essential cause of the violence in Denham Town, Tivoli Gardens and their environs was the presence of drugs and the proliferation of guns and ammunition in the hands of civilians residing in the area. No evidence existed that can attribute the loss of lives of 27 civilians to the action of the security forces only. The attacks launched against the security forces, the damage and destruction of their vehicles, the firing on the JDF armored cars and other vehicles conveying injured security personnel to hospital, all suggest an extremely high level of hostility and rage against the security forces which had been building up over time and which went far beyond a need to conceal and store illegal drugs, weapons, and ammunition. During the period, the security forces acted responsibly, exerting caution and restraint in order to contain the number of casualties and fatalities that might have occurred had they acted otherwise. In 2005, Tivoli had a new Member of Parliament. Mr. Siaga had stepped down after 4 decades and was succeeded by Bruce Golding. It was not very long that his mettle was tested.
The Member of Parliament, Bruce Golding, arrived in the area to rapturous cheers. He was being briefed by Councillor for the area, Desmond McKenzie, when shots rang out and panic set in. So 2 women were shot just outside the Denham Town High School gate. One appeared to be in serious condition. They were whisked away to hospital in the MP's security vehicle. Just look at the shock on the face of Mr. Golding after the shooting. He, like many of those at the scene, had no doubt that it was the security forces who did the shooting. Some residents claim that it was an assassination attempt on Mr. Golding's life.
Whether it is police or soldiers, I don't know. They opened fire on the crowd. A lady who was standing not far from me was shot. I'm told another person has been shot. I've just sent them to the hospital in my police car. This is not eyewitness report that I'm getting. I was standing here. There was no basis for the police or soldiers opening fire on the crowd.
Because the shots were fired in his direction.
From then, the tension increased in the area, and it showed during a discussion between Mr. Golding and Superintendent Kamika. Mr. Golding demanding an assurance that the residents would be safe, and he said he would not be leaving the area.
What I see happening here is their activities here.
Well, arrest me because
it's a clear breach of the curfew order.
You know what is a clear breach? What is a clear breach is the 2 women who were shot this morning. One of them may die. That is a clear breach, and if she dies, that is murder. Do you understand that, Mr. Kamik? Okay. But you appear to have no concern whatsoever. Your greater concern is about the breach of the curfew order.
The dawn of 2008 saw Tivoli Gardens in the headlines again, 13 days into the new year. It was a Sunday morning, but it was not easy.
This was the scene just an hour into what appeared to be a meticulously planned joint police and military operation at Keith Avenue in Tivoli Gardens, West Kingston.
Well, the operation started just before midday today. We came into the area. We were in search of wanted men, including some of those on the police most wanted list. Upon approaching the community, we came under gunfire from a group of men that triggered up a gun battle between the security forces and the gunmen. 2 members of the security forces have been shot and wounded. As we speak, they're in hospital now. 5 gunmen were also shot and killed. We also seized 5 illegal firearms and a quantity of ammunition. As we speak, we can see the operation is ongoing as we intend to get the men who we came for.
Word on the ground was that some of the men being sought were from the notorious Montego Bay-based Stonecrusher gang. Inevitably, not so, said some Tivoli community members, eager to present the community as law-abiding.
We not allow wanted man down here, we not allow rape, we not allow pin killer. I eat that thing that them come and them start fire shot, everybody have to run in.
A church service in progress was temporarily halted as the security forces went about their business, with the lawmen having to use tear gas at one stage.
Well, especially the children, they were crying, they were running up and down. We had to wet sheets and towels to put over their faces, but we did take the matter under control.
In October 2010, a jury in a coroner's inquest returned a verdict that one of the 5 was murdered and the police constable should be charged with the murder. Incidentally, that policeman had been shot and killed the previous year. The jury also returned verdicts that 2 other policemen should be charged with aiding and abetting murder. The DPP later stated that under the Coroner's Act, such a verdict was not open to the jury. A verdict was also handed down that 2 JDF soldiers should be charged with the murder of another of the 5, but the soldiers were later freed. The jury in the coroner's inquest ruled that it was justifiable homicide in respect of the deaths of the other 3 men in Tivoli. So many have asked, from the heady dreams of the early days, what happened?
We sometimes see a breakout of violence in affiliate communities in the corporate area and sometimes in St. Catherine. All designed to remove the focus of the operations that is ongoing in Tivoli Gardens. Tivoli Gardens represent the mother of all garrisons. The garrison machinery is well-oiled, super effective, and for those who are in the business of creating or maintaining garrisons must be the envy. I have not demonized Tivoli Gardens. It is the criminal elements who prey on that community who have done a damn good job of demonizing it themselves. There are many good, decent, law-abiding citizens and positive aspects to Tivoli Gardens that are worthy of praise and emulation by other communities. But for Christ's sake, do not insult our intelligence by pretending that the ugly underbelly does not exist.
Writing in the Gleaner in June 2010, Mr. Siaga shared his perspective with the nation. He said the Tivoli program was a perfect partnership and created the most comprehensive social and cultural development program for major inner-city urban areas. He said, had the area experienced peace on a continuous basis, the result would have been fully successful. As it turned out, he said, it was subjected from its 5th year to serious disruptions and dislocations. In the words of the former MP, when the PNP administration came to power in 1972, it sent soldiers and police to remove all the equipment for training programs in the community center. Mr. Siaga added that after the next change of government in 1980, with no further threats of violence, most of the programs resumed, but not with the same intensity, as focus was more on employment. He further explained that as the narcotics trade and drug use intensified, gang activity grew, and gang violence reached a peak in 1994 in the Tivoli area, and that he gave the names of 13 gang leaders to the police, including one Christopher Coke, but that the police did nothing. The article further states that Mr. Siaga had to use personal bullyism to condemn atrocities and subdue the area, but that if the police had taken appropriate steps at the early stage, the growth of gang activity could have been moderated. Instead, he says the security forces launched invasions in 1997 and 2001. A month before that explanation was written. Arguably, the mother of invasions. On West Kingston Remembered. Eight years after the 2001 confrontation, the nation began to feel new jitters over West Kingston. A request by the United States for the extradition of Christopher Coke to face gun and drug-running charges sent ominous shocks through the nerves of the nation. After several months, the government said the mounting pressure from various sectors in society influenced the reluctant decision to say yes to the Americans and move to hand over Coke, popularly called Dudus, President Shortman. 2 policemen were ambushed and killed the night of Sunday, May 23, and a number of police stations in the corporate area set on fire. The next Monday, Labor Day, chaos descended on the capital as the unrest was catapulted after the announcement of the signing.
My fellow Jamaicans, the government has never refused the request for the extradition of Christopher Coke. It has simply asked the U.S. authorities to provide additional information that would enable the minister to issue the authorization in compliance with the terms of the treaty. The Minister of Justice, in consideration of all the factors, will sign the authorization for the extradition process to commence.
Entire nation brought to a standstill.
Christopher Dudus Coke, one of the world's most notorious drug traffickers.
A state of emergency limited to the parishes of Kingston and St. Andrew came into effect at 6 p.m. today.
Residents of Tivoli Gardens, dressed in white, turned out by the hundreds Thursday morning for a peaceful demonstration. They started here at the Denham Town Police Station. Their message to police? Simple. Stop the propaganda. They are not being held hostage inside their communities. Neither have their cell phones been confiscated by gunmen. That's the response from residents following police reports Wednesday that no one was being allowed in or out of Tivoli Gardens, that their phones had been taken away, and that thugs were using JPS electricity lines to energize fortified barricades.
I lie them tell. Look at the electric wire. They say any wire hook up to no lead is a propaganda. They're trying to put a black painting on my brother.
You see the blackies that they are talking about? Yes, the blackies them have to put up. But everybody loves to do it.
Them a talk about phone attack when nothing goes to raise the phone.
Thursday's demonstration underscores the loyalty of Tivoli residents to the man they call president. They described him as their protector and provider and urged the government to leave him alone.
I don't see my 6 big to them on me. I don't go to no politician, I go to Dodos.
All when Dodos do for him, when they go with him, who else are going to stand up for him?
Jesus dead for us, or we are dead for Dodos.
Sections of West Kingston brace, as many speculate if this would be the final strike, the mother of all standoffs, to end all future possibilities, whereby a small enclave threatened to bring the nation's forces to their knees. The blades of a helicopter sliced through the tense atmosphere. On the ground, an armored police unit rose. The security forces are working overtime this Sunday.
And we have been getting reports as well of several citizens seeking to evacuate West Kingston and its surrounding communities.
So disgruntled citizens here right now because they are dropping bombs from the helicopter inside the place and a lot of kids are here. And this is not right.
Yesterday when they had appeal for persons to leave the community and they were providing buses, you didn't want to leave at that time?
No.
Why?
Because I never see the need for me to leave. But I'm really concerned right now. This is how they deal with people, and they say they're going to deal with it in an orderly manner. And they are dropping bombs in the place. because of one man. This is not right.
Prime Minister Bruce Golding is seeking to assure the nation this evening the army is well equipped and able to deal with the disorders in Western Kingston.
As to whether or not we are proposing or would contemplate seeking external assistance in terms of personnel, the answer to that is absolutely, emphatically no.
A convoy of about 8 vehicles left the opposition leader's office for Gordon House. They were escorted by a strong detachment of police from Area 4, traveling in 5 vehicles, including an armored carrier.
But what all of us need to do right now, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that there can be calm, and for us as leaders to offer hope to the Jamaican people.
Enforcement officers now seemingly have the Tivoli Gardens community under their control. But given the telltale signs of destruction that has swept the community over the past couple of days, the rebuilding process is one that will be the key focus in the days ahead.
Were the areas we saw really torture chambers? If not, what were they?
Hello, sir. Excuse me, I lost my son in the incident, you know. I'm sorry to hear. Yeah, Alfred Park.
There is nobody down here that we are going to say that we are all innocent. But the point is, the people them, what are dead in, none of them dead in front of their mothers, none of them dead in front of their girlfriend, none of them dead in front of their children, their sister, their brother.
Them kill off the whole of pick to them. Innocent. Not all now go on and them come to everything in here. Murder! Who are going to look for my son? Who are going to look for my son? Who are going to look for my son?
I'm not upset with the police. I'm not upset with these soldiers you see out here because they're told to do what they did. It's not right. They're leading you guys around all places where, guess what? You can't see no blood in no houses where people were killed. Tell them to take you to those houses. Where are those houses? Why is it that you guys have not seen that yet?
Don't limit it to a matter of an operation in relation to execution of a warrant. This country is under siege by criminals, and the time has come where it is going to be dealt with, and this government is prepared.
The 2001 body count had been high. The 2010 count seemed stratospheric. The official figure, 73. Some believe more perished. It was a heart-rending period for Tivoli, West Kingston, the country.
I don't know where the gunfire was coming from, and that was the alarming part. Who was doing the firing, where it's coming from. This now is an armored truck in Arnott Gardens, and here now is Spanish Town Road. That woman right there in the orange blouse was shot.
She was shot. Literally
across the street from where we were standing, right as I was getting ready to go live on the air to bring a broadcast. That Spanish Town Road between Maxfield and Waltham Park. And this woman was shot. Now, what was alarming about that was that the entire time we were hearing shots in the distance coming from the east, from where there was smoke in the Tivoli Gardens area. Now, all of a sudden, we heard a shot that was very nearby, a single gunshot. Now, I looked across the street because I was facing in that direction, and I saw this woman look down, surprised, grab her side, lift up her blouse, and realize that she was bleeding.
Oh.
And this was literally across the street from where we were standing. You see residents here now trying to console her, trying to help her and figure out what she was going to do from
I noticed, though, Kalila, there are a lot. Tell me, walk me through what's happening.
This is Whitfield Avenue. Now, while we were on Spanish Town Road, we smelt smoke and we saw a second area of smoke, and so we went towards it to find out what had happened. On Whitfield Avenue, there was a separate incident that occurred. Residents there believe criminals had seized the opportunity, since there was general unrest in the area, to take out a vengeance against another person. And so they firebombed this house, set it ablaze, and we saw the charred remains of a man inside.
Wow.
They shot at least 2 people, shot and killed. It was such a touching scene. If anything sticks in my mind for the rest of my life, it will be this scene right here. And you'll see a little girl was there, about 7 years old. She reminded me of my own daughter, and she was completely terrorized.
I noticed, though, Kalila, that there are a lot of individuals in the streets despite warnings from police officers to stay indoors. Any explanation from these residents as to why they would be out at a time like this?
There's the little girl.
That's the little girl you told us about.
Yeah, her what I understand happened is that gunmen kicked in her door, asked her, where is so-and-so, where is the person? Gun butted her mother, that's her mother, you see her bleeding from the forehead, and then shot her stepfather in front of her as she watched. And that child was terrorized. When I saw her, she was literally shaking, and she was crying, and she asked our news team if we could take her with us, take her to safety. And then she asked me whether there would be school tomorrow, because she wants to go back to school. She wants, I believe, some sense of normalcy in her life and some sense of routine. She said she won't be able to sleep. She doesn't know where to go. And that's what really touched me about this whole thing, the innocent lives being affected, especially the children.
The security forces went far and wide in an intensive search for Coke. While this happened, the rumor mill churned out story after story about his whereabouts. Just days after Coke slipped the arrest attempt, JDF personnel went to the home of accountant Keith Clark in the Upper Kirkland Heights, St. Andrew. In an ensuing shooting episode, Mr. Clark was killed after sustaining multiple gunshot wounds, and 4 soldiers reported shot and injured. The Clark family house was left looking like a hideout in the Middle East. This is just a short excerpt out of what neighbors estimate was as much as 2 hours of shooting.
Policeman up there now, you see those vehicles with the lights on? Here, into the yard. Oh yeah.
It took a month for the largest manhunt in modern Jamaica to come to an end.
Christopher Duddas Coke is now in police custody.
As the security forces stepped up the manhunt, Duddas changed his appearance drastically, not only shaving his beard, but wearing a wig.
Arrested by a party of policemen manning a vehicle checkpoint along the Mandela Highway, and they were acting on intelligence.
Our news team captured exclusive footage in Spanish Town, St. Catherine, as the police transported the man called the President to a waiting helicopter.
I'd like to appeal to the family, friends and sympathizers of Christopher Coke to remain calm and to allow the law to take its course.
Now I'm kind of glad, and why him do this to him do this for him people, because I'm sure them and do it down here, them have a way, them that talk about other man, and we as
Yes, Coke had in fact waived his right to a hearing as he claims, quote, I have taken this decision of my own free will, and have done so even though I am of the belief that my case would have been successfully argued in the courts of Jamaica.
After some 10 months of haggling, controversy and eventually unrest, reputed Shah Posse leader Christopher Duddas Coke is now in the custody of United States law enforcement officials.
At approximately 2, the aircraft taxied out to the runway. Coke was on his way to face gun and drug running charges in New York.
Friend Al Miller turned himself in to the police. He said he was taking him to the U.S. Embassy, but his actions have attracted blistering criticisms in some quarters.
Policemen on the ground at the time allowed him to go. I'm investigating the reason why that was done. However, from our standpoint, we believe that he needs to come in and speak with us because there are some questions that he needs to answer.
Of course, there are going to be people who have all kinds of things to say and make some assumptions, but those are just part of the reality of life. We just have to do what must be done in the best interest of all, and for me, it is what was best for the nation.
More on West Kingston Remembered after this. Changing times in West Kingston. Member of Parliament and Prime Minister Bruce Golding touring Tivoli after the incursion. There have been instances of personal dilemma. Some residents and sympathizers were stunned such a confrontation occurred during the tenure of a JLP administration. Many felt the foundation of the party and its leader had been rocked. He was heeding some early signs.
I've been in that constituency, as I do, as a matter of course, every week. You will find me there every Thursday. And it's been going well. And one of the things that I've also been doing is that I've now decentralized my own operations there. Normally I go to my constituency office in Tivoli Gardens, and people would come there to see me because the constituency is small. Somebody who is walking can walk from one end of the constituency and be there in less than 20 minutes. But what I've been doing in recent times is that I've been rotating my office days so that I may be in Tivoli this week. Next week I will be in Denhamtown, the following week in Hannahtown, the following week in Midtown, the following week in Matthews Lane.
Clearly, lessons too for Tivoli residents.
I'm going to say quite openly and quite assertively that West Kingston is not going to be the same again. There is a process of transformation that has to take place. And it may have been traumatic, but I think that it is community to go forward, it is to offer its citizens a better quality of life. It's to provide, especially for young people, hope and opportunity. That this has to be a game changer. We are working hard on perhaps the most comprehensive social transformation program that we've ever had. Immediately after the operations, when I visited the schools in the constituency and I went to the Tivoli Gardens High School, a member of staff took the microphone because I was fielding questions and said to me, we see what is happening and it is causing a great deal of hurt in the community. We want to find out from you, Mr. MP, when are the soldiers and police going to leave the area? And my response to them in front of the entire staff was very straightforward. I said the military will withdraw when they consider that it is appropriate for them to withdraw. The police will never leave.
So now even more changes for West Kingston. In the aftermath of the incursion, a young mother in Tivoli relates how life and especially back-to-school preparations have been since the extradition.
It's rough because President would keep back-to-school treat, booklets, would look about, voucher. If you ever get all of the school fee, you get half of it. You'd get bag, shoes, book, pencil. Without him now, it's struggling. Enough parents who used to get the help can't get it. We don't see nobody come again and look at offer.
So on average, how many persons would Prezi help every year to go back, send children back to school?
It's hard to give you a figure because you find outer port come inside too and get the help. So if we really estimate, say, you couldn't do it.
You have children going back to school?
Yes, miss. 2 children.
So how are you managing to send your 2 children back to school?
Oh, they go sell a little bag juice and try.
In early June 2010, the police reported seizing 56 guns and just over 12,000 rounds of various ammunition, as well as 84 explosive devices in Tivoli Gardens and other areas in West Kingston since the operation was launched on May 24. That was among many questions asked in relation to the incursion, the reported weapons tally compared to the number of civilians reported killed. There have been other questions, such as, were all the killings justified? Could Coke have been caught by other means? How did he escape Tivoli? The impact of the limited state of emergency. The white aircraft above downtown Kingston. The background of the men killed in West Kingston. How Keith Clark came to lose his life and in such a severe manner, as well as the exact correlation between the incursion and the subsequent plunge in reported murders and other crimes. So, will there be another inquiry?
If one were established at this time. The public defender is saying all of this considerable work that I have done, but which has not yet been completed, would not be available to the Commission before September. I think it's important, since the public defender is obliged to report to Parliament, to await his report.
Until then, the nation continues to reflect on the hard road this area has been traveling, by its own doing and otherwise, and wonder if there are truly bright prospects for how West Kingston will be remembered. I'm Irvin Forbes.